Shalom and welcome, everyone. Happy Chanukah. I hope you had a moment to pause and have a beautiful suganiya, something that I would not normally do during the year because of, to be honest, just the calories. It's just not worth it. But hopefully you just have one for the first night and that's the end of it. So just get it over with and have one ready. All right. We are, tonight is the second night of Chanukah. We are in the middle of a quarantine, and we have spent the last almost 8 months virtually, sharing classes and so on and so forth. And today we are going to be going through a little bit of this idea in Parshat Vayeshev about the different perspectives of Shalom, peace. So we deal with one of the most difficult parshiot in the Torah for me. The idea of Yosef's trying to betray his brothers. I know you're thinking the opposite, right? But so this is one of those very painful incidents that are very difficult to comprehend. How can brothers be so callous, right? How can they be so cruel? And I think when we closely examine the Pesukim, the verses in the Torah, we'll hopefully get some more insight to understand what was actually happening. So the Torah says that they saw Yosef from afar. And when he had not yet approached them, they conspired to kill him. Now, the Pasuk seems to be somewhat redundant. Now, it would have been more than enough if the Torah would just say they conspired against him. What does it mean that from afar he had not yet approached? Why stress that he had not yet approached? What is the Torah adding to the pasuk over here? Now, hatred, okay, can only prevail in the hearts where there is no communication. If you want to go ahead and destroy a people, all you got to do, or two individuals, just figure out a way where they don't talk anymore. Break down the lines of communication. The brothers saw him from a distance because they did not allow him to approach them. It's easier to condemn, resent, and hate from afar. The distance was the tragedy that led to the betrayal of Yosef by his brothers. Now, to prevent such a breakdown in relationships, the Torah commands us, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. Al tisneh achicha belev, right? Calling upon each of us to resolve the differences and not allow any kind of animosity and hatred within us. So let's try to apply this teaching to our own personal lives. Let us communicate in an amicable, civilized manner with all those who share any kind of resentment. Okay, we have to do this, not only for our sake, but for the sake of others, right? When jealousy and hatred are permitted to overtake us, they can literally consume us and just make us into these bitter, angry people who only destroy others. But more significantly, I've seen this time and again. If you know people who are going through hardships, right, they're carrying that bitter pain, the person that it hurts the most is the carrier of that pain. If you want to eliminate rivalries and controversies, even the subtle ones in our own families, we have to learn to communicate with honor and respect. We have to judge each person, give each person a favorable judgment, give them the benefit of the doubt. Isn't it what that we wish others to do for us? Well, don't we want them to give us the benefit of the doubt? Well, if we focus on their redeeming qualities rather than on their character flaws, you'll find life will be more pleasant and relationships will be much more rewarding. Stop thinking, looking on about the bad things and start focusing on those positive things. Now, the word shalom is mentioned several times in this week's parasha, and it's used differently at different times. And therefore, we detect some different dimensions of the word shalom. Now, shalom is one of those hard words. It means lots of things. It means greeting. It means peace. Shalom means welfare or well-being. It also, in Hebrew, the letters shalom comes the word shalem, which means complete, whole. In this parsha, we find that the brothers of Yosef hated him and could not speak to him. Shalom, peaceably, which we literally translates as to peace. Okay, now in this pasuk, we note an omission of the word shalom. The word itself is spelled here without the letter vav. There are many lessons that we can derive from this particular idea, this lacking, this chisaron, this lacking of the letter vav. If you want to attain peace in our relationships, you have to be ready to take steps towards accomplishing peace. That's why it says leshalom, to peace. You can't get to peace unless you're willing to take a little step to get a little closer. Each little step becomes part of the mosaic of steps necessary until completion, shalem or shlemut, till you get total peace. And that's when you get total peace. Because the brothers hated Yosef, they could not even take a small step to him. They couldn't even greet him. Why did they hate him so much? Well, Yosef was a goody two shoes. You know, he would go ahead. There were three things that he did that was that ended up coming back to haunt him. One is he accused the brothers of eating from a live animal, which wasn't true. He accused them of licentious behavior. And lastly, he compared them to slaves. He denigrated them. He himself was sold as an eved. He himself was that they say that the ram that was slaughtered, that was used to show his blood, was all a tit for tat for his slandering the brothers. And we know about his own challenges with licentiousness in the house of Potiphar. So with the letter Vav, the gematria of the word leshalom, to peace, is 400, right? Now this is interesting. Number 400 is equal to the value of the word ayin hara. Take the words ayin hara, gematria, it's 400. The brothers looked at Yosef with an evil eye. They were unable to see the good in him. They were unable to interpret any of his actions as being favorable. On the other hand, when Yaakov said that he intended to send Yosef to his brothers, to Shechem, Yosef responded, Hineni, here I am. And Yaakov, he goes ahead and he tells Yosef, and he says, I want you to look into the welfare of your brothers. And once again, in that pasuk, the word shalom is used, but this time the word is spelled fully with the letter Vav. And I believe this pasuk is teaching us that Yaakov instructed Yosef to see completeness in his brothers. See the whole picture. Stop being myopic. Open yourself up to all the potential of what is being seen. Don't allow your own biases to get in the way of what is really happening. How many of us have been in a situation where we've been accused of something which is completely far from the truth, right? But if you had the complete picture of what was happening, right, people would judge you more favorably. So Yaakov is telling them, go b'shalom, not in peace, but to see the shlemut, the whole picture of everything that's happening over there. And Yaakov was ready to do this because ultimately it's all in our hands. We will look at one another with an evil eye, or we will choose to see wholeness. You choose, it's a choice you're going to make. What lens are you going to wear? Obviously, it's much easier to see another person's faults. Yeah. But the challenge is to search for goodness in people, for the positive attributes of each individual. How we judge others speaks volumes about our own character. When I hear people speaking poorly about other people, I know that's the kind of person I don't want to be around, because it's only going to take a small amount of time for that person to start speaking about me in unfavorable ways. But let us use this time of Chanukah to kindle the lights of love, compassion in our hearts. Let's use the light of Chanukah to remember. And it's also Shabbat Chanukah, which is like even a double whammy. And next week it's a it's a Shabbat with all the lights of Chanukah. That's the most amount of light we could bring into the world. It's supposed to bring clarity, a clarity for ourselves and hopefully a clarity to the world. Now, through this parasha, I think we could begin to understand the terrible consequences of jealousy and animosity. What happens to these two principles, these two emotions, if they are allowed to go unchecked? It can lead to all types of intense hatred. Simple communications becomes impossible. Look what's happening today in the government. You have like the speaker who hasn't spoken to the president in like 2 years. Does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense. You have like a whole government where you have one side and the other side, no one's talking to each other. In the meantime, you have people on the ground, businesses, individuals that are waiting to get stimulus checks, and they can't get anything because there's no shalom in our government. And it has consequences, a trickle-down effect. What happens when we allow jealousy and animosity to go unchecked? Chachamim tell us that when Yosef greeted his brother saying shalom, they mocked his greeting. But when he remained silent, they said he doesn't even say shalom. This teaches us that in the face of jealousy and hatred, nothing that one does is right. If someone's feeling angry towards you or jealous of you, no matter what you do, it's wrong. On the other hand, when love is present, there's always a willingness to look away and forgive. So the Torah is teaching us, which midah are you going to use to look at the world? You want to use the midah of hatred and jealousy, or the midah of shalom? Which do you think will get us further in life? Do you think that as a society we would accomplish more through hatred and anger and jealousy, or through love and understanding and patience and giving of the person the benefit of the doubt? Now, a further manifestation of this jealousy appears in the elderly Yaakov, when he is told to identify your son's coat. Is this Yosef's coat? The brothers' hatred was so intense they couldn't even say Yosef's name. Is this your son's coat? It was their brother. When they came to sketch their dad and say he died, they had to bring some evidence. So they said, is this your son's coat? They couldn't even say his name. Think about where these people were. These were big people. Now, to prevent a destructive expression of hatred and this kind of deterioration of our relationships, let us be super careful to refer to others by their names. We should always never, that guy with the short haircut or that girl with the jacket. Use a person's name rather than the impersonal object of he or she, right? I've often heard that in troubled families who come to, they come for consultation, hostile children simply can't pronounce the words, my mother. I've heard it. Can't say my mother or my father, but insist on referring to the parents as he or she, right? There's a world of difference between the two. When we say my mother or my father, you're acknowledging that no matter what, whenever you see eye to eye or not, bottom line is you're connected. You know that they care for you and they're concerned for your welfare and your well-being. But when parents become she's and he's, they're transformed into objects that have no meaning or bearing on our lives. So spend some time being aware of yourselves. How do you refer to the members of your family? Please make it a point now in the darkness of winter, when we're going back into our homes and the family issues, because especially this week, those of you that have kids and everyone's home, I'm telling you, there are going to be issues. There are going to be wars happening in your homes. Okay, there's wars already erupting in my house. Okay, but it's these times, these are unique opportunities to be mindful, to enhance your relationships through a simple exercise by just calling people by their names. It's not a coincidence that when God expresses his love for the patriarchs, for the avot, he says Abraham, right? And for Moshe, our teacher, he repeats their names over and over and over again. The perasha is a constant reminder about how easy it is for the closest relationships in our lives to completely fall apart because of simple, foolish, childish emotions. I often tell my children that, and my students, that if you have a choice between an emotional decision versus a rational decision, if you're making a decision that's just based on emotion without anything rational behind it, you are making a mistake. Every choice that we make has to have a rational component to it. If it's just emotional, I feel bad. I feel bad for you, and I feel bad for the person that is on the other side of that choice, because emotions are raw. There's so much power, but there's so much energy in emotion that you could destroy someone or you could build someone if it's done the wrong way. And that's why you need a strategy for your midot. The Pasha talks about the brothers. They each had different character traits. At the end of the Torah, we'll see in Pashat Vayechi, when Yaakov is giving his blessings and reprimanding the siblings, he tells them, he curses their anger. We don't need to live in a world of anger. The whole purpose and the function of the Torah is to give us the clarity, the insight, so that we don't make the same mistakes that they did. But if we're living in a world where we're still living with those mistakes, we haven't learned the lesson. May we be granted the ability of living in a home of shlemut, of shalom. The last understanding of shalom that I have is harmony. That shalom means that all the moving pieces are coming together perfectly. May we be zocheh to see that shalom manifest itself in the world. May we have it in our homes. And most importantly, may we have it within ourselves. Shabbat shalom, Chanukah sameach. Thank you for listening. And God willing, I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week. Shabbat tov and Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Thanks, Izzy. Send my best to the fam. Thank you, Laura. Nice seeing you. Jen, yeah, stop calling her Koif.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.